The EFF has vowed to shut down the economy on the 20th of March to demand the return of electricity and the resignation of President Cyril Ramaphosa. The party president, Julius Malema, says the national shutdown means that there will be no school, no university, no factories or businesses open. He was addressing the media after the party's plenary meeting in Johannesburg this afternoon. The EFF says it will also be highlighting the rising cost of living, unemployment and poverty, as well as increasing levels of crime. It says that a decision has been made to shut down coal-powered stations without a discussion with the people of South Africa. The energy options put forward by the EFF leader included developing nuclear power with the Russians and supporting floating power ships. Malema says the shutdown will mean that no schools will be operating, workplaces will be closed.
The reason for the national shutdown to demand the return of electricity and for the resignation of Cyril Ramaphosa is further informed by the following reasons: rising cost of living for all South Africans, rising levels of unemployment and poverty of our people, increasing levels of crime, particularly murder and gender-based violence, his decision to close down coal power stations without consultation with the people of South Africa, rising levels of corruption, lack of service delivery, and collapsing public infrastructure, particularly hospitals and roads. Phala scandal, where a lot of criminal activities were committed. The national shutdown means that there will be no school, no university, factories, and no business will be operating on the 20th of March. All municipalities and all major cities will be shut down, and there will be no work on that day. All major roads will be barricaded, and all ports of entry, including roads that lead to the borders, will be closed. The national shutdown to demand the return of electricity and for the resignation of Cyril Ramaphosa will mean that no business operation will be opened on that day, and no truck and no train will be allowed on the roads and railways, particularly the trucks transporting South Africa's minerals and coal to the outside South Africa through Richards Bay. We cannot fold our arms and do nothing when the ANC government and Cyril Ramaphosa, who is involved in a lot of criminal and questionable dealings and yet protected by law enforcement agencies. This is a shutdown. We will call for the immediate end to the load shedding, which is crippling the South African economy and returning this country to the dark ages.
EFF leader Malema also says the party has resolved to cut all ties with the IFP in KwaZulu-Natal. This follows a series of meetings and what he terms the inability of the IFP to appreciate their unconditional support.
The EFF held with Inkatha Freedom Party on the 20th of January 2023 and 25th of January 2023 respectively, following a relationship between the organizations at the level of local government since the year 2016. The meetings formed part of the need to not only establish stability in municipalities where voters did not elect an outright winner of the elections, but to also create a balance in terms of representation and power sharing in coalitions across municipalities. Following these meetings and the inability of the IFP to appreciate the need to cooperate with those who have given them unconditional roles of responsibility in municipalities in KwaZulu-Natal, the EFF has resolved to cut all ties with the IFP.
ANC President Cyril Ramaphosa has conceded that the ANC will face probably one of the most difficult elections in its history. He was speaking at the ANC's National Executive Committee Lekgotla underway at Esselen Park east of Johannesburg. He also touched on some of the interventions to reduce load shedding to manageable levels, but he acknowledged that campaigning for the 2024 general polls will be an uphill battle for the governing party.
In just over a year from now, our country will be holding national and provincial elections. The ANC will then have to engage in probably the most difficult election campaign that we have ever fought. The outcome of that election will have profound implications for the direction of the National Democratic Revolution and indeed for the future of our country. Although no party has had an official launch of its election campaign, as one observes, the campaigns for 2024 elections are well underway. We need to get into election mode without delay. And perhaps this Lekgotla, and it must be one of the platforms that we utilize to actually get our election campaign underway. Through our actions now, we need to send a clear message and signal to voters that the ANC is taking all necessary steps to deal with the challenges that our people are confronted with, especially unemployment, the rising cost of living, crime and instability, the poor service delivery. Our focus must therefore be on action, and urgency. The renewal and the rebuilding of our movement is not negotiable, and in fact must be regarded as irreversible and irrevocable. This is an existential issue for us because if we do not renew our movement, it will simply perish. Only an ANC that is united, that is strong, that is vibrant, is an ANC that can effectively address the needs of the people and advance the National Democratic Revolution.
Let's look at this and other political stories making headlines. We're now joined by Dr Fikile Vilakazi, political analyst. Doctor, thank you for being with us. Let's go back to what the EFF was saying about the IFP. I mean, the IFP had a better than expected showing in the local government elections, but there's now a long list of municipalities where it faces losing mayors or other officials. How significant for the IFP is this rift with the EFF?
Good evening, Francis and viewers at home. It's a very, very significant position, for the Inkatha Freedom Party and for any political party, in the country, because we are living in a fragile political moment where the politics of coalitions and relationships between political parties in terms of how we govern our municipalities towards 2024, is critical. So the fact that the economic freedom fighters is now challenging Inkatha Freedom Party at municipal level, mainly because of its failure to support what was happening in Johannesburg, in terms of voting out the DA, is something that the Inkatha Freedom Party has got to look into with a critical eye, Francis, and I'll tell you why I say that. Because the coalition, I call it the opposition coalition, needs each other so much at this crucial time in the country towards 2024. And if there are any divisions that will happen in any opposition coalition of some kind, it means then that it weakens the position of the coalition as you go towards 2024. And of course, then it means it is continuing to make fragile the position of some kind of possibility for change for the country. So coming to the Inkatha Freedom Party and EFF, you would know, fellow South Africans and Francis, that Inkatha Freedom Party, even as South Africa was negotiating this liberation that we are now enjoying, which is really going through a fragile moment at this point, which is the democratic South Africa. Inkatha Freedom Party is well known for not even wanting to have been part of this democracy that we are now dealing with. For a number of issues, we know, the issues that are troubling the EFF now is the fact that IFP has always aligned itself with the apartheid agenda, even during apartheid, is something that is well known in South Africa. Part of it, of course, continues itself in what we see in the manner that the IFP always aligns itself with the Democratic Alliance. And South Africans know that what we see today as the DA partly is a political party that emerges from the remnants of what was an apartheid political party. So there are those things that are troubling then the position of an opposition in South Africa that is democratic at this point. If, for instance, a positionality of that particular position of a party is seen to be perpetuating, the imbalances of the past. And in this case, it seems that the Economic Freedom Fighters sees the IFP as a political party that is not really changing its reliance on an apartheid type of a relationship with the DA in this particular instance. And it seems to be continuing itself, Francis.
But Doctor, the EFF voted in some DA mayors as well. So everybody's changing alliances. But you say it's actually based on real principle here. I mean, if I may put it this way, the fact is it's pretty hard to deliver services when alliances keep on changing. The EFF, the smaller parties, are effectively determining who is governing municipalities at the moment. This will all play out. Is there any protection for voters in all of this?
No, there isn't. I mean, the EFF is not necessarily also innocent in this particular demand, right? We know that the EFF itself is galvanizing and pushing for positions. We've seen it in Etwane, we've seen them in Ekurhuleni, we've seen them in Johannesburg, and that's what they're pushing for even here KwaZulu-Natal, Imani, and they're preparing themselves for that kind of a position at a national level for 2024. But that does not necessarily translate itself to issues of service delivery for citizens. And in fact, it makes coalitions even more fragile because we can see, we know the EFF itself at some point said they will never be able to work with the ANC in any government. But we've seen them now coming back recently, as they were ousting the mayor in Johannesburg, they supported the ANC, right? And we've seen in the negotiations, they've done that. So people are beginning to say, but is it possible that we can trust the EFF? So there's that kind of fragility. Even now, as the EFF has been in a relationship since 2016 with the IFP in various municipalities, and now they are dumping the IFP. And who knows, tomorrow they may dump also the other coalition members that they voted with. And that is the nature of what is happening with these coalitions. You don't know what to wake up to as South Africa, and it really puts us at a very, very difficult position as citizens, where actually we are going through a dicey, fragile, very, very sensitive, volatile political situation here, and you don't know actually who to eventually even vote for, right? Because you can vote for a particular party now, which you like, and tomorrow the coalition would have changed, and they would then decide to go and sleep in the same bed with another party. And for me, that is what is happening here. I would not be surprised, Francis, that the EFF 2 months later down the line may come back and have a relationship with the IFP, and that is what is troubling about the politics of coalitions, and it's something that we're probably going to see even in the next 5 years as South Africa is negotiating the issue of this change that we are going through and the maturity of our democracy and really managing these relationships and coalitions. There's a lot of give and take that is going to happen, and clearly for the EFF, again, it's a power game. They know what they want. This is not an empty dump of the IFP. They need positionality, and they're preparing themselves to be government in 2024. They are hoping that the commander-in-chief is probably going to be the president of this country, through a coalition of some kind. And it's possible. The way the coalitions are happening, we've seen now we've got in Johannesburg a mayor from Al Jamaa, something that South Africa never would have thought would happen in the country. So they are pushing for that kind of a thing, and it is likely to be possible if the fragility of coalitions is happening itself in this way. They will dump anything that does not support them and buy into anything that supports them.
I like what you're saying. I mean, given what we've seen, it seems like anything is possible for 2024. So let's bring in the ANC here. The EFF initially said it would vote with anybody against the ANC. Now it's working with the ANC. You say that could be about governance. The EFF has said it wants governing experience. What about the ANC in all of this? The president saying it's going to be very tough, 2024. People are disillusioned. What sort of leadership do we need from the governing party right now for the next year, if anything is going to turn around for the ANC?
Imani, it is urgent that the ANC turns around the situation of electricity in the country. There's no reason why we are living in darkness. Imani, seriously, the ANC government can just make sure that in the immediate situation, we just rely on the sun. Why is it that they're not putting solar panels in every household in the country, particularly households that are really, really vulnerable at this point? That's an immediate thing that can be done, and it's possible. You just rely on the sun. You can also rely on hydro, and just in our neighborhood, you know, Ethiopia is doing it. Ethiopia is busy in a project that you call the Renaissance Dam. You know, for those countries and their neighbors that are in the Nile River, to say we need to electrify our country. And if South Africa can speak to Ethiopia, because that project, Imani, can actually electrify the whole of the African continent. So the President Cyril Ramaphosa, our honorable, needs to build those kinds of relationships, even with the Democratic Republic of Congo. You know, Congo is busy with the project that we call the Inga Dam, also about electrification and access to water. So we shouldn't be thirsty as a continent. You know, within those relationships at the African Union, immediately the president can draw into those projects. But we can't even do it as a country without Ethiopia, without the DRC. You know, we can just really put solar panels, tap into our budget. Medupi and Kusile, we've invested a lot of money there. That is wasted expenditure. Can we take the money that is allocated for Medupi and Kusile, Imani, Francis, so sorry to call it Imani, you know, and make sure that that money is redirected towards immediate energy needs for communities, women in communities that we are talking to, feminists in particular, and other families are ready for solar power. They're saying, if there's no electricity, we are happy to live on solar, and other households are already beginning to do that. It's something that is possible, something that is doable, something that is practical. Can the ANC just really be practical? And I think that is where their salvage lies, and they just don't seem to be doing that. They are very, very theoretical, and South Africans in the process are suffering. We can really put solar within a process of 3 to 6 months, you know, and salvage the situation, but they are not necessarily buying into that. And South Africans are ready, you know, to diversify energy, because really it's tough to live in darkness, Imani, particularly women who have to feed families and take the burden of care.
Yes, of course, and we were speaking about it this week. One analyst talking about Vietnam that added 9,000 megawatts to its grid, which would equate to 9 stages of load shedding in South Africa, and that was in a year. Thank you very much for your thoughts. That was political analyst Dr. Fikile Vilakazi.